2.5 years ago, I started to learn to program on my own. I used free courses online and I was very committed. I worked very hard every day to learn programming. I eventually started programming full-time in my job, and I started on a particular project that I became very passionate about, and it forced me to grow and develop as a software engineer. This project pushed me so much because I was a beginner and I worked on it multiple times. I came up with an architecture for the code, wrote the code, found that it didn't work, went back to the drawing board, re-architected it, recoded it up, and I did this multiple times. Eventually, my time at my job finished. I was working in an academic research lab and I was starting in a new PhD program. So I essentially moved on from this lab and moved on from the research project. I then had this opportunity to go and study computer science at a graduate level and really flush out my knowledge because again, I was coming from this self-taught developer background. While I was in school and studying, I kept thinking about this project. I had this deep need or even a desire to go back and finish the work that I had started. It wasn't that I just wanted the satisfaction of completing this project. I felt that this project had a lot of potential behind it, and I was very passionate about solving the problems that I was working on with this project. So with this burning desire in me, I decided that I wanted to approach the project in a new way and take some of the ideas and insights that I had and really go full on at this project and make it as big as I was hoping that it could be. I wrote a grant application to AWS to get computing credits for my ideas, and I was awarded $5,000 from AWS to build out this project. With my passion, with my motivation, and with $5,000 in AWS credits, I set out to once again re-architect my project with this new knowledge that I was gaining at university and try to make my vision happen, this grand vision for this project that I was working on. So now it's time to architect this project to be cloud enabled. If you've seen some of my other videos where I talk about this project, you'll know that this project is focused on parallelizing data analysis with Python. One of the key components that I saw as a need for this project was sort of like a control plane layer, a layer that could control the computational resources in response to the data analysis that needed to be performed. I found that this feature was lacking from some of the other packages that I was using to build my package on top of. So I set out to build this control plane. What happened was that I was trying to approach this problem from too many angles. Not only was I trying to write parallel algorithms, but I was also trying to manage the control of computational resources and develop a clean API that could work both in a local instance as well as a cloud instance and on high performance compute clusters. Anytime I was thinking about this problem, it was very difficult for me to break it down into simpler parts and just think about simple parts independently. My mind was stretched thin into all these different areas simultaneously, and it just became too much to handle once again. So although I had developed this new knowledge being at university and through working on this project in the past, and I felt that I could now build out a bigger vision, I once again set myself up for failure by just spreading my mind too thin and not really modularizing the code. I stayed stuck in this space for a few months and I just kept trying to work at it. I kept trying to write and rewrite this project. Nothing seemed to work, and I seriously considered quitting, calling it quits on this project altogether and putting my mind to something else. At this point, I took a break for a little while to manage my course load. The courses that I was taking were very challenging, and I needed to put more time and energy towards that. So I completely put this project on the back burner. Although these challenging courses that I was taking were not directly related to the project that I was working on, they did teach me something about approaching difficult problems. And I never seemed to stop thinking about my project, even though I wasn't working on it directly. I came up with a new idea, a new way of approaching the project. I wanted to just focus on the most important part of the project. Really, the entire project is about parallelizing data analysis pipelines. And I realized that being able to do that was the most important thing that I could do with my time. That was the first problem that I needed to solve. And that all of these other things that I wanted to add on around that, like the cloud-enabled API, would be features that would extend this core functionality of parallelizing pipelines. Once the semester was over, I went back to this project with a fresh perspective, a fresh mind. I was now going to just write the parallel pipelines. Part of the problem that I'm trying to solve is dividing up or partitioning the input data. So imagine you're running some data analysis process and you're passing data into this analysis process. My algorithm is going to take that data and partition it or split it up into discrete batches. These discrete batches will then be operated on in parallel if possible. When I went to write this package again, I decided to leave out the partitioning. Combining the partitioning with the actual parallel algorithm introduced too much complexity. These really are two discrete processes and should be treated as such. Through this new way of thinking and the ability to break down complex problems into small bite-sized problems, I was able to develop a much simpler API. And now, today, as I'm working on this project, I am solely focused on writing parallel algorithms, which has been the main focus of this work from the beginning. These parallel algorithms serve as a core that I can build around. And in the coming weeks, that is exactly what I plan to do. I've gotten to this point many times in the past through all the times that I wrote and rewrote this code. So I can tell that the version that I have now is going to be extendable for the other use cases and features that I want to add in. Although I was able to get this project working and to get it to the place that I wanted it to be in, there was a giant price to pay. This project took me over a year longer than I had originally anticipated. This was partly due to my inexperience as a beginner developer, as a self-taught developer, just kind of learning through building this project. And one of the key mistakes that I made was expanding the scope of the project. Because I expanded the scope of the project and I wasn't able to narrow down and just solve the problem that I wanted to solve, it took me over a year longer, which means that I wasn't able to get a publication while working in the lab that I was working in. It also caused me a lot of stress because I constantly had this thing on my mind, like it was something that I should have completed. It was something that I should have finished. How bad it might seem that I worked in this lab for over a year and I wasn't able to finish the project that I set out to do. One of the other negative side effects of taking so long to get this code base working is that I wasn't able to utilize a grant that I had received while I was working in this other lab. We wrote a grant for funding from Google in the form of Google Cloud credits. And we received $20,000 in Google Cloud credits for testing out this package that I was working on. Those credits expired and I wasn't able to utilize them for this project. I'm still working on this project today and I still have a grand vision for where I can take this, but I have a much different approach to getting there. I'm taking things one step at a time and I'm making sure that every day when I'm coding, I'm working on immediate problems and pushing the code forward. This project forced me to become a better developer. Many of the ideas that I had about this project turned out to be true. I just wasn't in a position in the code base or in my own knowledge to implement them at the time. Now I feel much better equipped to take on this challenging problem and to continue to expand this project. I've written out the parallel algorithms on a small subset of data, and the next step that I'm going to be taking is scaling this up. I'm going to be working on a much larger data set, and I will also be running this on a high-performance compute cluster. In the next video, I'm going to be sharing the journey of scaling up this package that I'm writing.